Sharp Game here, coming at you with another episode from ChooseYourRelationships.com, off of Love Can't Wait, which can be found on Amazon.com. You know, when I was growing up, I think one of my parents' biggest fears is that somehow I would end up with some young girl, getting her pregnant, and eventually I would be paying child support. And, you know, if you've been living as long as I've been living, back in the day, if a girl got pregnant, that was looked down upon. I know today it's not such a big deal. It's starting to be normal. But if you had a kid back in the day and you wasn't getting married or already married, that was looked down upon. And what happened back in the day, a lot of girls that got pregnant up north, they used to send them down south because that was an embarrassment, not only to the kid, but to the parents. So they used to send their little young girls down south to stay with a grandmother. And see, I grew up looking at my brothers, because a lot of my brothers, they got caught up into that pregnancy trap. And what happened is a lot of women used to trap guys and use them like a paycheck. Not only did they put them on child support, they turned around and justified why they had to do it. And in most cases, the money almost never went towards the kid. So not only did when my brothers used to pick the kids up, either on the weekends or during the holidays or whatever, not only did they pay the child support every month, they bought extra stuff as well, because you know as well as I know, if you care about your kid, you're going to be concerned about their well-being. And a lot of these mothers used to take advantage of that, and over time, I used to think that it was all about the money, but in most cases it wasn't. It was a little bit more than just about the money. I think it was a combination of control and the money. And a lot of these women are very spiteful, because I think on one hand they wanted to be with certain guys in a certain capacity, maybe married or living together, but a lot of these guys didn't want to be with them like that. And that was part of the problem that a lot of these women had. That's why they put a lot of these guys on child support. And when back in the day where I live, I'm from the Georgetown, Myrtle Beach, Florence area. Back in the day, there were just whites, blacks, and Asians. There were no Spanish-speaking people that I knew of or seen until the early 90s. And I've seen working class people go on child support, rich people go on child support, and poor people go on child support. This is just across the board. And my brothers paid child support, have been paying for child support for over half of their lives. And one of my brothers, especially, at one point, he couldn't even afford to pay, but somehow he made a way. And I saw this from the age of 12 all the way up to my 20s, early 20s. So I always said, I never want to be a part of that. I never want to be anybody's paycheck. So my mindset was to never have a kid out of wedlock. Never had a kid with any woman that I wasn't married to or about to get married to. And never have a kid with someone that I can see myself being around for the long term. Now, I did, after I think I was about in my 30s, I did manage to get a woman pregnant that we didn't have the greatest relationship, but she ended up having a miscarriage, right? So that kind of scared me. That kind of taught me a lesson. So what I did is I stepped my game up. So I started to kind of slow down and filter out and started to be more conscious of who I lay up with. Because if the shit goes south, at least I have a good relationship with this person. And I won't be standing in front of a judge dealing with district attorneys and the cops knocking on my door if I fall behind one payment and that shit. Because I don't like dealing with the court system or the justice system, period. And I don't want to deal with anything I don't want to deal with these people. So what I've done, man, is I just became more conscious of who I laid down with. I try my best to get to know the other person as quick and as fast as possible. That way, I don't have to worry about a lot of the extra stuff. I don't have to worry about, is this woman, is her first resolution or solution to the problem is going to be to go to a third party? If that's her first solution to the problem, I'm dealing with the wrong person. I don't need to be spending a lot of time with this person. I need to put space in between me and this person. And that way I won't have to worry about, or at least risk the chance of getting her pregnant. Because every time you sleep with a woman, there's a chance that you're going to get her pregnant. I mean, nothing's 100%. Condoms aren't 100%. Look at a lot of these athletes. A lot of these women are doing all kinds of scandalous things. The guy takes off the condom, and the woman goes behind him and take the condom out of the trash can and puts the sperm inside her. She managed to put the sperm inside her. She gets pregnant. Now she puts him on child support. Now he's paying money every month. That happens out here. And then you got some women where, maybe she's a corporate woman, maybe she's successful, or maybe she's well off financially and very resourceful. Some of these women, the only thing they're missing, at least in their mind, is a baby, a child. So they'll target certain guys. They might even get to know the guy well. About it, get to know him and as far as his background and everything. She'll manage to get pregnant by the guy. Don't have intentions of being with the guy at all, long term, and she's looking for a way out to break it off with the guy. And when that happens, she'll go her way, he'll go his way, and she might give him visitation to see the child, or she might not. Who knows? Then you got other women where they might go to a sperm bank. Some will do that. And then you got some women where they just target a random guy, have a baby, and she'll get pregnant, have a baby, and won't say anything. She'll just leave and won't say anything or let the guy know anything, period. And a lot of times, a lot of these women have remorse and they feel bad as they get older. So 20 years might go by. Then she decides, she sees the light. She feels guilty. Then she'll tell the daughter or the son who her real dad is. And they'll meet the biological father. And, everything usually turns out well. I know at least 2-3 cases where that has happened. Those women are out there too. And you have to understand that a lot of these women, when they get desperate, they operate on emotions. All logical and critical thinking, that's out the window. So you got these types of women that are out here. But in most cases, the women that target athletes, that's usually all about the money. 100%. I would say at least 99%. The women that target athletes, the one that's on Instagram, the ones that do little renegade hone on the side, the one that, a lot of these women are borderline prostitutes in most cases that's on Instagram. A lot of them are looking for the come up. A lot of them are groupies. These women, you know, when they get pregnant by an athlete, he's paying child support, you know. But, you know, Trump is making it a little bit difficult for a lot of these women, because a lot of these women aren't going to be able to sit down and collect the check the way they used to. They have to have a part-time job, or they have to be doing something productive in society to keep getting their child support money every month. So there's going to be some changes or some red tape in the system. But, you know, a lot of these women will find a way around the red tape, you know, because they, you know, a lot of these women, they planned out this stuff in advance. You know, they didn't have intentions of being with any of these guys they laid up with in the first place. So they'll find a way. But these women out here exist. So you got to be careful. What I've done is, you know, like I said, I became conscious of who I lay up with. I get to know people based on their character, their personality, their background, their personal life, how they living, you know. And you know, I take it to the next level. You know, a wise man taught me years ago. He said certain personalities do certain things, so you can kind of predict how someone would act or how someone would behave in a certain type of way based on their personality, on how they think, on how they carry themselves, their lifestyle, and etc. You know, that's a little advanced. I'm not going to get into that here. That's for my private members group, you know. But after what I've learned over the years, I can pretty much predict and kind of know how someone would react or respond in certain ways based on their character, their integrity, their personality, their way of thinking, their way of speaking, their way of responding, their way of acting, their way of the way they present themselves, etc. It's a long list of ideas and characteristics that I look for, because at the end of the day, people have patterns. People have patterns, and most people don't break their patterns, and most people don't change very often. You know, I mean, they might change their environment. You know, and environment has a lot to do with it. Environment has a lot to do with how people act, the way they behave, because environment influences how people act and how they respond, and their living situations and their financial situation and how they grew up. All of that has a lot to do with how people act and how they carry themselves and how they function in society. And that's what I've put most of my focus in. I try to get to know people quickly in the least amount of time as possible, because that gives me an edge. That gives me an advantage in a sense, because just like I said, I don't want to be standing in front of a judge that hates my guts, that would rather see me in jail, and I don't want any cops knocking to my door at 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning telling me that I'm behind on one child support, and if I don't have the money, I got to go to jail. I don't want to deal with that. So I had to step my game up, and I had to be conscious of who I lay down with, because, you know, the laws are very biased and very unfair, and you got people out here that, you know, they prey on the weak, and that, you know, everything is subjective, and they kind of take your kindness for weakness. So, you know, I would advise you to do the same thing. And if you need any help with this, you know, contact me. Leave a comment below. We can talk about it. And I talk about a lot of this stuff in my books and in my private members area. So if you need any help with that, you need any help with any situation that pertains to having kid with a woman, or at least thinking about it, get at me, So if you like what you heard, subscribe to my channel, chooseyourrelationships.com, and visit my blog, join my Players Club. So if you got questions, I got answers. Until next time, I'm out. Peace.